Need for Speed. Underground 2, probably one of the best Need for Speed, probably at least one of the most rated Need for Speed and having one of the best reputations. I recently restarted this game for a Let's Play and realized that even 20 years after its release, it remains a masterclass. There are things present in this game that we still don't see in modern games. And even if the game, of course, has its age, graphically, you can tell it's not very fresh. There's something satisfying about the gameplay and something that makes it so when you play this game, you have a good time and really have fun. Something that has sometimes disappeared a little from modern games. So I simply wanted to do a little retrospective of this Need for Speed Underground 2, to try to explain a little bit how and why this Need for Speed Underground 2 has become one of the references in the Need for Speed franchise, but one of the references in the world of racing games period. I hope you enjoy this retrospective. If you do, please leave a like and subscribe. Also, please share your thoughts on this game in the comments below the video. I think that, probably for a good part of you, it will bring back good memories. In any case, I hope that will be the case. Don't hesitate to comment and tell me why this Need for Speed Underground is appealing to you. Is it a masterclass? Also, for your information, I made a video about Need for Speed Underground a while ago. This video is a retrospective that I recommend watching if you haven't already, as I will refer to it several times in today's discussion. I'll be making several references to Underground, to show what has been improved and what has progressed between Underground 1 and Underground. So yes, if you want to see some images from the game again, or if you've never done it and you want to discover the first Underground, don't hesitate to go see this video. As I was saying, the game was released in 2004 on multiple platforms. The game was released on PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube, and PC, although the PC version is less known. The images in this video are captured on a PC. I didn't use any graphic mode, except for a mode that allows to stretch the game in 16:9 format. And you can see that on PC, even if the game is 20 years old, provided you run it at maximum quality. It doesn't feel like a 2004 game, but rather something released a few years later. The game had ports on handheld consoles with varying success and faithfulness to the PC and PlayStation 2 versions. It was available on Game Boy Advance, PlayStation Portable, and DS, but I've never personally tested the DS version, so I can't comment on it. This game was published by Electronic Arts and developed by Black Box, who simply made all the most highly rated Need for Speed games. Like the Underground, but also the Most Wanted, which we might talk about it one day in another video, and I will probably redo it in a Let's Play live on my Twitch channel. If you're interested, follow me and consider using your Prime to support me. For this Underground 2, it's very simple. Black Box simply decided to take everything that worked well on Underground 1. The graphics, the sounds, the original soundtrack, the tuning, of course, the literally underground spirit. A little bit of a race hidden from everyone. They took all these strong points and they added to all this an open world. And that was still a revolution. So, it's not the first open world game to come out, since before it, there were games like Test Drive 3 and Midnight Club. But Underground 2 was really one of the first games to use the open world as the basis of its gameplay. And it was the first big game to really become popular and sell several million copies. Thanks, among other things, to this possibility of freely exploring the map whenever you want. This allowed the game developers to operate the progression system in a totally different way than in Underground 1. In Underground 1, we selected a race from the menu, launched it, and once finished, returned to the menu. Now, we can explore the entire map. The races start directly from the open world, although they can also be accessed through menus, completely transforming the gameplay experience. This also enabled adding new challenge types, such as crossing other drivers in the city and challenging them. These are artificial intelligence drivers, and by continually beating them, you can even unlock special customizations. But the presence of this open world, it was also for them the opportunity to add secrets and add workshops on the map that we had to find in order to progress in the game. There were different types of stores that we had to find on the map. As long as we hadn't discovered them, and as long as we hadn't entered them, they didn't show up on our minimap. We found the tuning workshops, which therefore allowed us to customize the exterior aesthetic parts of our car. The accessory workshop allowed customizing car interiors, which was a novelty. We'll discuss it later. There were performance workshops to be able to improve and adjust your car, the paint workshops, the headquarters, and the dealerships. You will need to find all these workshops in order to customize your car, advance in the game progression, since finding a workshop adds new parts to you, and these parts are necessary to complete and unlock races. Exploring the open world was necessary to complete the game, which turned out to be a great idea, as I mentioned earlier. They have taken up and greatly improved the customization from Need for Speed Underground 1. The cars have redesigned body kits with many new customization options, especially new types of customization. As I was telling you, we had interior customizations, and that at the time was the trend, because at that time, in the early 2000s, tuning was the trend. Tuning was ubiquitous in action movies, magazines, and music videos, and it was very common to see modified cars with big sound systems in the trunk. And on Need for Speed, they thought, well, let's take all this craze for customizing car accessories and integrate it into the game. As a result, in this Underground 2, in addition to customizing the exterior of your car, you can change its gauges, you can add neon lights to it. What we could already do on Underground 1, but it has been improved. We can add different colors and different shapes of nitro purges, we can put hydraulic suspensions on it, we can put hoods that will open in a particular shape. We can also change the door openings with the famous suicide doors and butterfly doors. And of course, we can customize the trunk of the car to add a huge sound system, which will of course allow you to blast the bass. Customization, highly valued in Need for Speed. Underground 1 is now the core gameplay element in Underground 2, for the simple reason that on this Need for Speed Underground 2, being fast will not be enough. You will need to tune your car to improve its customization rating, represented by a star system. And you will need to unlock the tests in the career, and therefore to finish the game, have a certain reputation, a certain number of stars. So yes, to progress in the game, you are forced to customize your car, which is not a punishment. At the time, it was really something cool, but being forced to customize your car will also give some real horrors. We must not hide it. The tuning from the early 2000s, it has aged really badly. And it's hard to make stylish cars. In Underground 2, we quickly encounter the cliché of extremely ugly tuned cars. I always found it amusing and admit that I enjoyed it a bit in my Let's Play. So you will have to customize your cars and improve them to simply unlock new challenges and win them. The game no longer has a point or reputation system, but it retains the currency system. Each race you succeed in and each sponsor signature will earn you money in a more or less significant way. And of course, this money will be used afterwards to be spent on buying performance parts, customizations. In this game, switching cars costs nothing. You can only have 5 cars in your garage, allowing you to become more attached to certain models than if you had 50. This also allows you to strategically choose the right car for each event. Of course, there are paint workshops where you can repaint your car, paint its rims, mirrors, hood, and of course, add some beautiful vinyls. In terms of challenges in this game, we find everything we had in Need for Speed Underground, plus new types of challenges, including the Street X. It's racing focused on small circuits where the maneuverability of your car at low speed will really make you win. And we have the famous CCUs, also called the Death CCUs, which are official challenges, meaning they are challenges that take place on circuits in the map that are not in the open world. These circuits have sponsors and real brands. It's as if you were suddenly on Forza Horizon and proposed a mandatory race on a Forza Horizon motorsport circuit. They unlocked new cars for you. They brought in a lot of money. They allowed you to unlock new sponsors who gave you specific goals to achieve, in exchange for a nice reward. The CCUs were extremely challenging, with a highly boosted and aggressive artificial intelligence. Let's discuss the artificial intelligence. This game is difficult. There are difficult races on Underground 1, but on Underground 2 from the middle of the game. If you play with a car that is not one of the best in the game, and if you play in difficult mode with the rubber banding, activating the artificial intelligence becomes horrible. She is almost insurmountable. She is always behind you, ready to overtake you at the slightest little mistake. It leads to races like the CCUs, where you may need to restart dozens of times to find the optimal paths, or simply to have enough luck to win the event. We also find on this Need for Speed Underground 2, the magazine and cover system. There was already something of this style on Need for Speed Underground 1, but on Underground 2, it has been improved in the sense that it is you who will decide how the photo of your car will be taken. You can position it. You can decide to open its hood, its doors, its trunk. You can choose the camera angle and validate the photo once you like it. This feature lets you create custom magazines featuring your in-game car. Sport utility vehicle races are another new event type. I found out that the sport utility vehicle races in the game were completely optional when I replayed it this year. They were an addition to the game. At that time, there was a trend called dub, an American customization done on large four-wheel drive vehicles, where the goal was simply to put the biggest rims possible, to put diamonds, chrome, and shiny stuff everywhere, and to make the car as bling-bling as possible. Following the trend, the developers added sport utility vehicle racing to the game, so the races were optional, and they therefore added sport utility vehicle type vehicles to the game. By the way, Speaking of the vehicles from Super Nintendo Entertainment System Underground 2, the cars are more numerous and varied than on Underground 1. The game emphasizes European and Japanese cars with limited budgets. High-performance models are absent. While there are exceptions, the game still features some American cars like the Pontiac Gran Turismo Omologado and Mustang. However, 90% of the cars in the game are Japanese or European Gran Turismo injection or Japanese domestic market sports cars. We find all the classics from that era: the Skyline R34, the Supra, the MX-5, and the S2000. In addition, we have a few French gems, like the Peugeot 16, which was really too cool at the time. The game obviously has other strong points, notably its graphics. So it is true that on PlayStation 2 the game may not be as beautiful. Above all, Underground 2 on PlayStation 2 is not more beautiful than Underground 1. The fact of moving the game from a classic game to an open-world game must have required some small sacrifices on the game's graphics. But on PC, the game is really much nicer than the PC version of Underground 1. The game was ahead of its time with stunning visuals and innovative technical features that set it apart from contemporaries. The sound of this game was really nice. The cars sounded really good, well, not all of them, but a certain amount of them. Notably, as we enhanced these cars, the sound was also refined over time. The game's physics was great, even better than modern Need for Speed titles in my opinion. This was well before the break to drift, when we used a physics model that, while not ultra-realistic, was much more logical. The cars had genuine differences, and there was a real interest in using your brake and taking the right trajectories to be the fastest. The game's soundtrack is also quite exceptional. Unfortunately, I can't let you listen to it here for obvious copyright reasons. The playlist featured a mix of genres including rap, pop, metal, and early 2000s pop punk. Everyone found something they enjoyed, leading to memorable tracks. I discovered some bands because I heard them on the game. I've only discussed the positives so far. For me, this game still has a downside. In any case, 1 point less well done than on Underground 1 is the story of the game Underground 1. The game featured mythical characters and impressive cinematics. Underground 2 features a comic book-style delirium, replacing traditional cinematics with comic book panels for players to read. And personally, I never understood the delirium. Because actually, it seems to me that the comics were not translated into French, but also, and above all, it went by way too fast. We included lore details and bubbles for the game, which weren't explained in the audio or detailed elsewhere in the game's world. We often overlook details and miss opportunities to understand the game's lore and connect with the characters. As a result, apart from Rachel, we have very few memorable characters in Underground 2. And when we get to the end of the game and we have to beat the game's bosses and the #1 club of Need for Speed Underground 2, we simply have the pressure of facing any random driver in the game. The movie lacks memorable scenes and characters, with Rachel being the only exception. I want to say that it doesn't really pose a problem in the game. We still have fun. We want to unlock new cars. We want to find all the workshops to unlock all the customizations for our car. And at the time, the addition of an open world completely overshadowed the fact that the story was a bit shaky. Speaking of which, the map, let's talk about it. The map is a real success. It already offers several biomes. They didn't just settle for making a city. There is also a more industrial area to the south, with warehouses, trains, factories, the port, and everything related. The map features a big city in the center, a slightly more affluent neighborhood above it, and surrounding areas outside the map's boundaries. We have mountains, a bit more greenery, and much more winding roads. Aside from the subpar story, the game doesn't have any significant drawbacks. As I mentioned earlier, the artificial intelligence can be extremely aggressive at times, but this also depends on how we customize the game and its settings. But aside from that, it's a success. Graphics, sound, open world driving, content box office. This allowed this game to receive, at the time, a lot of ratings. About 16 to 18 out of 20. And this was when the press didn't give 18 out of 20 to recycled Call of Duty annually. Having a 17-year-old in the media back then was truly beautiful. And it allowed this game to sell 11 million copies, which is still colossal. So this game was a global success. Success with the press, success with the players, commercial success. And then, when we all expected Need for Speed to take the hit by proposing an Underground 3, Black Box took a completely different direction by proposing Most Wanted. Most Wanted that we will soon tackle in Let's Play, and on which I will make a video of this style. To relive a little bit of the nostalgia of this Most Wanted, and to explain a little bit what made Most Wanted also in the top 3 of the best Need for Speed of all time. By the way, Tell me if you are still there at the end of this video. For you, which one do you prefer? Underground 2 or Most Wanted? In any case, Underground 2 was a masterclass. It raised racing games to a whole new level. And what I find quite crazy is to think that 20 years ago, Electronic Arts was really a studio that we could trust. Need for Speed was a top racing game franchise, along with Gran Turismo. They boldly innovated and experimented with new ideas. And it's really during those years that all the foundations of the games that we have now, whether it's racing games or not, were actually created. There was a time when games were sold complete, with a strong focus on single-player modes, without downloadable content betas or early access. This is the case with Underground 2, even though it offers a multiplayer mode in screen. 5D, and above all, it was a time when there were very few controversies about games. Interestingly, at the time, there was a controversy surrounding Underground 2 due to the in-game advertisements integrated into the game. Today, it's common and classic to see games advertising brands completely unrelated to the gameplay. Back then, many automobile-related brands were present, contrary to the current situation. So, it was not a problem to see that the game was linked with brands like HKS or Ebar, for example. On the other hand, there were Burger Kings, and that was really weird. There were literally Burger Kings everywhere in the game. There was even a place on the map to the north, where there was a Burger King with the road for the drive-thru. It caused a bit of controversy at the time, because it was really new and because we weren't used to having brands pay to be present in a video game. While it doesn't detract from the game, it also doesn't contribute much. Nonetheless, Underground remains a masterclass among racing games. I hope this video may have made you want to replay Need for Speed Underground 2 or discover it. The game is legally available for free download on many abandonware sites. The game being very old now, it is no longer listed anywhere, so it can no longer be officially purchased legally. In the end, free downloading of this game on the internet becomes fully legal. If you haven't already, I recommend downloading the game to experience it firsthand. If it was your first try on Underground 2, why not come here and share your thoughts? I hope you enjoyed the video. If that's the case, of course, I'm counting on you to support the channel through the means mentioned in this video.